Testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Yeah, I've been soliloquying for a few minutes now, so I just decided that I think it's better to capture it on tape, because I do soliloquy a lot, but most of it is never captured on tape. And sometimes when I catch it on tape, and some other times I catch it on tape and then you get to hear it, or you get to listen to it. Most of what I capture on tape is never really put out there. Anyway, I have my personal reasons, but maybe you get to hear this one, maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. But I've been soliloquying for the last hour about the Medu Netchers, you see, and that's because I was basically reading about something, and I came across I came across a tweet where someone posted about the Medu Netchers and all that, and then like as if recalling an old lover or something, because I studied these a long time ago, and I just started recalling all the things I studied and what I thought about them and all that. So I started soliloquying, because the Medu Netcher is evidence of something. Now, the word Netcher comes from, in simple terms, it's called Netcher, and Netcher is basically the English pronunciation. Netcher is the more correct pronunciation, because it is from there that the word nature comes. When we talk about nature, the universe and all that, the original word is Netcher. And it is an ancient Black African word. It comes from the ancient distant past. Okay? I know you don't get to hear that anymore, because you are taught from cradle to grave that the ancient Greeks invented everything. Everything started with the ancient Greeks, but that's a fantastic lie. I mean, the lie of it is incredible. Okay, and you have to really want to believe that, to not know that it's a lie. Because when did ancient Greece form? When did you have an ancient Greece? There are structures in Black Africa that extend thousands and tens of thousands of years. People talk about Göbekli Tepe somewhere in Turkey. And who do you think was in Turkey at that time? You think they were black people, black Africans. Everywhere around the world. I'm talking for tens of thousands of years. There was nobody else. And some people find this extremely hard to believe. Why? And if there were other people, they were not involved in anything. They were not considered. They were not considered a part of civilized. They weren't civilized. They weren't doing anything. They were like savages and barbarians. Now, where did the Medu Netcher come from, and why? You see, there was a time, and this is very strange because what I'm trying to describe really contains no time. But human beings existed in a state of paradise. And most people they think paradise is something that is connected to biblical things, because that's the only example you have of where you hear the term paradise. But paradise is not a place. It's not a physical place. It's a state of consciousness. Now, if you've been listening to my podcasts, you will hear me say so many times that what we consider to be an external reality really is not an external reality. There's no such thing. There's no internal reality or external reality. That need to create this boundary condition so that you can now have an external and an internal, right? There's a deeper reason why that is taking place. Because that thing that we call an external reality really is a projection of some kind. But it's coming from us. Okay? And then you now say, okay, what is the nature of us? Well, us is not a thing. It's not a singular thing. And yet it is. It is the infinite expression of one thing. So that one thing has many expressions. And yet it is one thing. You see, how is that possible? Well, that is the nature of paradise. You see, because you look at a beautiful painting, or you look at a beautiful woman, or you look at a beautiful man, or you look at a beautiful building, or a beautiful city, or a building. When we talk about beauty, what are we really talking about? We talk about beauty as an expression of symmetry, proportion, or is, a sense of completeness. People have so many terms for beauty, but all of that does not compare to the beauty of paradise. The thing that typifies paradise more than anything else is a sense of beauty, absolute beauty. That is a sense of beauty that cannot and can never be surpassed. Now, we don't know what that is in terms of human understanding. We have no idea what that is. So I'm going to try to give a hint. I mean, it will never be an accurate description, really. Okay? Because you cannot reduce that type of beauty. Now, what it is a single thing that has an infinite amount of expressions. And each expression is related to every other type of expression within it in the same type of way. It is by comparing the relationship between these infinite expressions, that's where you find the beauty. Because it's always beautiful. So if you think of the sense of self, it's a spectrum. It's an infinite spectrum, meaning that it's something that you can divide into an infinite number of sections or whatever. And yet it's one thing. Now, when you think of yourself, you don't think of yourself as an infinite expression of some kind. You think of yourself as one person. Okay? If you didn't, you'd be locked up in some type of sanatorium because you won't be able to function. Okay? So yet we think of ourselves as one thing, yet we are an infinite expression. That is, we have infinite layers, so to speak. That's really what it is. So how is it possible for something that has an infinite spectrum to it to be one thing? Now, every aspect of the infinite expression that you are has a beautiful relationship with every other aspect, no matter what the aspects are. And that is a unique feature of a very specific type of system. The system that is our memory of paradise, because that's what it really is our memory of paradise. It's not a memory that we can recall, but it's a memory that is there nonetheless. We cannot pinpoint what it is, but it is where we come from and ultimately where we go. Okay? That's really what it is. And so there was a point in awareness where human beings existed in this state of paradise, where there's an infinite expression of everything, and every aspect of the infinite expression has a relationship that is beautiful to any other aspect. Doesn't matter what it is. That beauty is a sense of meaning. When your presence becomes one aspect and you compare that or contrast that with any other aspect that is also part of your presence, the relationship is as harmonious and as beautiful as possible, meaning that there is no possibility for contradiction or conflict. Now, note the words I used. I didn't use things or as I said, when you are a certain aspect of paradise and you compare yourself to another aspect of paradise, the relationship. So it's because paradise is not a place per se. It's not a space. It's not a time. Okay? It's an awareness. And the awareness itself is typified by this beautiful presence. The presence of absolute beauty. Now, at some point in time, human beings fell off that beauty. And I'm using the word fall here for lack of a better term, because it wasn't a fall as in gravity or something like that. It wasn't a fall as in, some type of evil or something like that. No, it's the emergence of the physical universe. Because the state before the existence of the physical universe represents, you can only describe it as a hidden enfoldment, an infinite enfoldment of a hidden structure. Nobody knows what it is. And so the birth of the universe from that hidden enfoldment, and I use the word enfoldment, that is the patterns that exist in nothing. Nothing, meaning that it's not physical, it's not a space, it's not a three-dimensional space, it has no time, nothing. Okay? It's a concept space. That is the concept associated with the primordial consciousness. Okay? And when I describe the paradise, it really is a description of the primordial consciousness. And you will note at some point I said humankind was in paradise. But the real annotation or the real nomenclature is that human beings were paradise. So that the primordial consciousness is what became the human. The primordial consciousness is paradise. And so it became human. And before that happened, it expressed a physical universe. What is the nature of this expression? You see, scientists have been grappling to themselves. They can tell you what happened less than a fraction, a millionth of a millionth of a millionth of a millionth of a second after the Big Bang. But what they cannot tell you anything of is the Big Bang itself. Or, no, I wouldn't say the Big Bang. I would say the singularity. Because, modern science says that the universe emerged out of a singularity. So you can imagine that the singularity broke. And then the physical universe is what came out of that. But that's modern science. The reality of the matter is even a bit stranger. Why? Because it is paradise that became the physical universe. And the only thing that happened to paradise to become a physical universe is deacceleration. And he's like, what are you talking about, deacceleration? Yeah, deacceleration. You see, because in paradise, there's no space and there's no time. And that simply means that awareness, conscious awareness, does not register a space or a time for its changing awareness. It doesn't need to. So, when you have a deacceleration, it means that that's light, conscious awareness, now needs to take time to be able to get from one aspect of itself to another. That is the description of the physical universe, where you now have a speed of light, a limit, so that if you look across a galaxy, for instance, the Milky Way galaxy is 100,000 light years across, so that light from one side of it takes 100,000 years to get to the other side. So you cannot imagine that galaxy as a single structure where the lights from all aspects of the galaxy are reaching your eye at the same time. No, that's not what's going on. There is a natural shift in the light associated with the galaxy, with all the galaxies, because there's a natural shift process in the universe the further out you look, because of the limitations associated with the speed of light. But what I'm saying is that the speed of light it's not, there's no light, there's no galaxy, there's nothing. It's you. It's just an awareness, a presence that is now a projection that you call a universe. So what caused the acceleration? Well, that's what, it's a very interesting question, because what causes the accelerations? Now, it means that what we call paradise, or what paradise is something that is moving at infinite speed. It allows for infinite speed, so that desire or awareness is able to experience everything at once. And what that means is that knowledge is pervasive everywhere. There's no aspect where there is a lack of knowledge because there's a lack of understanding, because you look at something and you don't know what it is. That does not exist. It's a full spectrum of understanding, full awareness. And then awareness begins to drop in terms of, it now becomes, once a space exists and a space-time, once a deacceleration exists and a space-time is created as a compensation for that deacceleration to maintain equilibrium, then within that space-time the nature of light is changed. Because light now needs time to travel across that space. And as a result of that, ignorance can emerge. And what that ignorance truly connotes, what it truly means, is the ignorance of self. Because remember, there's nothing. There's really nothing. So it means that ignorance is now possible within the self. And so it means that at some point in time, it is possible for the self not to know. Whoa. This is very strange, because such a thing does not exist in paradise. And in my podcast where I talk about the light streams, although, yes, I think it's available to everybody now. I talk about the light streams, and I said there's light stream 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I said that the difference in these light streams really is what you call the speed of light. Its value is very different in all the light streams. In light stream 1 that we are on, the speed of light is 300,000 kilometers per second. That's the limit, right? But it's not the same in light stream 2 or 3 or 6. And I said by the time you get to light stream 6, where the speed of light is literally infinite, then there is no time anymore and there's no space. And so there's no past, no present, no future. And that's the same thing in paradise, because in paradise there's no past, no present, no future. Because for you to have a past, a present, and a future, you must have a limited form or a limited expression for the speed of light. And when past exists, it means that memory is now needed. And it means that there's the possibility of forgetting. And when the past exists, it means there must also be a future. And the future is unknown, because light from the future cannot reach you because of its limited value. It is the limitation itself that creates the necessity of a future. And so what it means is that there is asymmetry in the nature of knowing. Because you can remember the past, that's why it's called a past, but you can also forget it. And then you know nothing of the future. And so that creates anxiety as a response, as the consciousness's response to this lack of knowing. Because what it doesn't know is itself. Because remember, the past of the self, the present of the self, and the future of the self, because there's nothing else. Now, these are not easy things to fully grasp like that. You have to really come on board to begin to grasp this, because I'm weaving a thread through physics, back into ancient, Chemetian knowledge and all that. Because where I'm going is I'm going back to the Medu Netcher. I need you to understand where they come from. Because in paradise, there's no need for communication of words or voice. But what's there to communicate? People wonder, say, look, because you have past, present, and future, you now have a possibility in the impairment of knowledge. Because now you can look at something and you don't know anything. This is not something that a human soul is, a human conscious, the original, what I call the Adamic, or what the narrative in the Torah calls the Adamic consciousness. It doesn't exist. Nobody knows. I mean, this is something that is very strange. What? You can look at something, you don't know what you're looking at, but you're not looking at anything. You're looking at yourself. So how can you not know what the self is? It's because of the deacceleration and the change in the speed of light. That creates silos, because there are aspects of that physical universe space, okay, which doesn't really exist. We're just looking at self, right? There are aspects of the self that can be disconnected from each other. And so one part doesn't know about the other. This is an incredible, this is an alien type of experience, because it is not beautiful. Because what disintegrates in that process is beauty. Because now, how do you know the relationship between different aspects of this infinite expression that is the self? Whoa. So that the job of consciousness, we as human beings right now, we exist in that state currently. That's why our reality looks the way that it does. We exist in a state where the speed of light is this, and you cannot move past the speed of light, and you can't do, you are isolated in some type of way. Everything is disconnected from everything else. But like I told you in one of my podcasts on Yeshayahu, where I talk about the light streams, Isaiah, right? I tell you that prophecy means that you are able to merge the light streams, or you're able to move from one light stream to another, because prophecy is knowledge of the future. And that's what happens when the speed of light begins to expand. You begin to remember the future. That's what it is, because the original state of the human, in paradise, is that there is no past, there is no present, there's no future. There is the constant state of awareness, a presence, and bliss. The bliss, I describe it as in from an awareness presence point of view, as an orgasmic experience. Because everything is known. Everything is known. And everything that is known is the most absolute beautiful thing that can be known. That's it. And that's the only way that it exists. And in that kind of existence or reality system, there's no space, there's no time. So what is communication? All right. You look at communication the way it is today. The way that communication exists today in human consciousness is because there's the possibility of misunderstanding. So all the languages, all the alphabets, all the vocals, all the whatever, they are ways to try to bridge the gap of misunderstanding, to eliminate it, to connect. But if you were in a reality system where disconnection is impossible, then there is no need for such things. There's no need for language. There's no need for anything. You need memory today because the possibility of forgetting is there. But in a reality system where there's no past, there's no present, there's no future, then there's no need for memory of anything because it's impossible to forget. What are you forgetting? You're forgetting yourself or what?